Good morning. Welcome to Marvelous Mondays. It's a beautiful day outside. Hope you had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Um, on Saturday, I was the speaker for the Elks, and we celebrated Flag Day, which actually was on Sunday. It's always the 14th of June every year. I put a lot of work into the presentation, and I think a lot of you weren't able to get out, so I'm actually just going to repeat it. And after, if you'd like to see what it looked like, we recorded it. My message was just like 10 minutes and 10 seconds. That's on my website, Jeffrey Tim, Jeffrey Timm. If you go to my Facebook page, it's on there. There are also a couple links if you'd like to see some of the flags that were submitted for the 50 star. And also there's one that's for pointing towards the future. Actually, there's several that you can see on there as well, which are suggestions for a flag with 51 stars. So it was kind of a fun day. It was a hot, hot day. We went to record the service on Saturday morning, and the air conditioning had gone out in the church, and that was hot. And then at 3 o'clock, we went to the Elks out in the parking lot by the flags, and that was really hot. So we had a hot weekend, you might say, particularly Saturday. So I'm looking forward to having some beautiful days here. I think it's supposed to be like in the 70s and 80s. So let me tell you a little bit about the flag, and I think you'll find this very fascinating. Our first flag was obviously adopted by the Second Continental Congress. They were right in the middle of doing their work, and they stopped for a few minutes and decided to adopt a flag for America. That was June 14th, 1777. On June 14th, which celebrated that 14th that they adopted the flag, Woodrow Wilson decided that he was going to establish the 14th of every single year of June as Flag Day. And it's not an official holiday, so in other words, the post office is still open and government buildings are still open. Actually, the first Flag Day started even before Wilson did that. In 1885, a man by the name of Bernard Sigrand decided with his children, he was a teacher, that they would have a day where they learned about the flag and they celebrated the flag and they prayed to God and thanked him for their freedom. And he did that for 23 years before Woodrow Wilson finally set aside a special day. I guess he got so bored during that time, he studied and he went from teaching to being a dentist in that 23 years that he was waiting for Flag Day to come about. One of the leaders in Flag Days is the Elks group that we have on our island, that we have all around America. And they were right in at forging this day and getting the president to make this an official day. And so for the last 111, 112 years, the Elks have been celebrating Flag Day, and they're the one who sponsored it on the island. So in other words, every single Elks chapter in America is required to have a Flag Day. And they have taken the leadership in that. So wherever you go that has an Elks chapter, you're going to have Flag Day on the 14th. We actually did ours on the 13th because Saturday seemed to be a better day. So we know that our first flag had 13 stars and 13 stripes, recognizing the original colonies. The Second Continental Congress also stopped at another juncture, and they defined the colors. Red stood for valor and for hardiness. White obviously stood for purity, innocence, and liberty. And the blue stood for vigilance and for justice. Now, since Betsy Ross sewed that first flag, a lot of things have happened to our flag. The question I asked of the group over there, and nobody seemed to know the answer, was how many American flags have we had since that first one was adopted on June the 4th, 1777? Okay. Oh, you're right. 27 different flags. Our flags always have 7 red stripes and 6 white ones, except for one flag that we had in history for actually 23 years that had 15 stars and 15 stripes. From 1795 to 1818, for that 23-year period, if you saw an American flag, you would look and count, and you'd look at 15 of those beautiful stripes and 15 beautiful stars. Now, anytime that you add a state, the state is always added to the flag, but it's always on a specific day. It's the 4th of July. So if you're voted into statehood in August, then you've got to wait till the next July before you officially can have your star put on the flag. It's always, since 1818, has been the 4th of July. That flag with the 1515 was the same flag that Francis Scott Key saw over Fort McHenry when the British were attacking and penned our national anthem. You might be interested to know that there were 6 flags on the moon, all planted there by America, and only 5 of those are left. The Apollo 11, which was Armstrong, the flag that he put up there, the first one, is long gone. It just disintegrated with all the elements on the moon. So the next question is, what is the longest used flag that we have? The original one with 13 was 777 to 1795. That's 18 years. That's the 4th longest. The 3rd longest was the one with 15 and 15. That was 1779 to 1818. The 2nd longest was the flag that we had before the one we have right now, and that was the one with 48 stars from 1912 to 1959, and that lasted for 47 years, 2nd longest. The longest is the flag that we have today, from 1960 up until now. That's 60 years, the longest that we've ever had a flag. Now, if you do the numbers crunch, you will realize that the average life of an American flag is 9 years. And then we get another state and we change it, and then it would average out another 9 years, another 9 years. So obviously we've had this flag for a really, really long time. In 1960, we celebrated Alaska and Hawaii, and our flag went up to the 50 stars that we enjoy today. It was in 1958 that a teacher decided to celebrate the fact that there were going to be 2 new states, and he gave his students a project in their high school history class, and he had them design a new flag for the 50 states that would be coming on board. One of his students was a young man by the name of Robert Heft, and Robert Heft cut apart a 48-star flag and went and got a couple more stars, and he re-sewed it all together. That was the first time he'd ever sewed. That was the last time that he ever sewed. His teacher was not very impressed with his flag. He liked some of the other ones in the class much better, so he gave Robert a B-. And it was interesting when it was official that there were going to be 2 new states. There were, get this now, you gotta love Americans, there were 3,000 unsolicited flags that were sent to President Eisenhower suggesting that this should be the next flag of America. Now, if you'd like to see some of those flags, I think it's the 50 most popular of those. It's in a book called Old Glory. If you go to Amazon, you can buy a used copy for 45 or a new one for 50, plus postage. Or if you happen to be out in Kansas for the summer, if you go to the Eisenhower Library in Abilene, Kansas, you're going to find all 3,000 of those flags are put away at Ike's library. The person who came in second was a guy by the name of Henry Fibos, and what Henry had decided to do was he added a Statue of Liberty to the very center of all the stars, and then had the stars around that. So the winner was, you got it, Robert Heft. And so on the 4th of July, 1960, Robert Heft and President Eisenhower stood and watched that very first flag go up the flagpole. Well, you got it. The teacher changed his grade to an A. The B+ went to an A. There's a study that's gone on for a number of years in terms of what are the most recognizable flags in the world. And guess what always comes up first? The American flag is always the most recognizable. Now, Heft, who won the contest for the stars that we have today and the flag we have today, he was so impressed with education that he became an educator, a teacher in a small town in Michigan. And he also became the mayor of that small town in Michigan. And he died in 2009 at the young age of 50. So you'd have to ask yourself, what would the next flag look like when we get a new state, when we get 51? What's it going to look like in terms of the design? Newt Gingrich, some years ago, asked the Congress to make the moon the 51st state, since we already had all these flags and had been there several times, that we should declare that an American state. Yeah, he never got enough votes. Puerto Rico for a long time has been a territory, and people have anticipated that maybe Puerto Rico will be the next state. Who knows? But if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to design one and have it ready when that happens, let me kind of bust your bubble a little bit. Robert Heft has already designed a 51 star flag, and he has also designed a 60. I guess he thought there would be quick from 51 to 60, but he's done that. Today, his flag is you'll have 6 stars across, then 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 6. The new star that he designed for the 51 states is one that goes 9, 8, 9, 8, 9, 8. And that was what he did. I'll show you a couple of the flags, which are kind of interesting, that were not chosen. This one was in the top 50, and it's in that book called Old Glory that I was just talking about. This is kind of what it looks like. A very interesting one. It's not very traditional. That was for the 50. People have already designed flags for the 51st, and this one looks like Pac-Man eating some of the little stars. This is one that I like. It's got the stars down the side and the constellation in the middle. And then if you like circles, here's one that goes around in circles. And you can sing that song, Going Around in Circles. And if you want to see Heft's next flag that he suggested, live and in person, here you go. That's the flag that he has already copyrighted, and it's sitting in that little town where he was the mayor, just waiting for us to get our 51st state, so you can add another star. And he already has a good start on getting accepted, but who knows? It just depends on who the president is and what appeals to him. One of my favorite flags that didn't get chosen was one that said USA in the blue with stars, and I really liked that one. And then there was one that had the 48 stars going across, and then there was a star down at the very bottom on either side, and then it said, "In God We Trust." And so those are some of my favorites. If you want to go to my website, Jeffrey Tim, you can see the service that was done yesterday and the hot sun. And there also are 2 links that will show you some of the flags that were not chosen. One of them is 10 links. The other, it's 1 link, but it's 10 flags, and the other is 12 flags. One of them comes from that book called Old Glory. So I don't know about you, but every time I see that flag, it just makes my heart flutter a little bit, because I know that freedom is not free. Being a military guy, it was always so nice to see the American flag flying over the base where you were, or see somebody walking down with a military flag with an American patch on. So it's a wonderful flag that we have. It's been a part of who we are from almost day one. That Second Continental Congress sat down on the 14th of June, 1777, and decided that this beautiful red, white, and blue was going to be the flag of America. And it has been for so many years, and particularly this flag that we have now that has these 50 stars on it. just remind us that we are 50 strong and that we are a free people. When people see our flag that are not Americans, they yearn for the kind of freedom that we enjoy and the blessings that we enjoy in life. So on Flag Day, it's a time to celebrate our freedom, but it's also a time to stop and thank God for our many blessings, to thank God for the ways that He has led us and directed us. I mean, after all, our coins nail it and says, "In God we trust." And that is my prayer for this day, for this Flag Day that is now past, and for each one of our lives individually. I close the program with a little poem, and I like to do that today too. O flag of our union, to you we will be true, to your red and white stripes and your stars on the blue, the emblem of freedom, the symbol of right. We salute you, O flag, fair and bright. So, thus ends the Flag Day ceremony. It was short and sweet. I hope that you enjoyed that. To me, it's just fascinating, that whole scenario that went on with Robert Heft and President Eisenhower and the 3,000 Americans that sent in flags. Um, some of them are really, really great, and you will enjoy seeing that. And you always kind of wonder what the process was to get the flag that we have. And it all started with a history teacher with a project and a 17-year-old boy who would be, what I guess, a junior in high school, that designed the flag that most of us have enjoyed for the entire time that we have been on this planet. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And again, it's all on my Facebook page. Tomorrow I'm going to do a little something, and a number of you have emailed to let me know that we have already finished Revelation. And we went back and looked, and yes, we did. We did that in July when we finished up the New Testament. So what I'm going to do, I think, for this week, I'm going to go ahead and go through the book of Revelation for my devotions and look at the different sections that are in there, just to give you a little bit of a background of the book and all of its many sevens. 7 is the perfect number. It's the number of completion. And so we'll look at each one of those phases that are in there, and I think you will enjoy that. I'm actually probably going to start that on Wednesday, and then I'll run through the next week. And this coming week is Father's Day, and I'm going to be preaching on our Heavenly Father, our Father. So I hope that you will join us for that. Hope you'll join us for the Bible study. We'll do a little bit more in the book of Revelation, the Bible study, and then we'll be moving into something new. So I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and let's open the week with a word of prayer. Lord, it is a new week. You are going to show us some new lessons. You're going to remind us of some old truths. You're going to try to open our eyes to the many God winks that we find around us. But most of all, you're going to ask us to look at our coins and validate that the way that we live, that in you we do trust. We thank you for being Emmanuel, that you're always there with us. After all, we've got your son Jesus sitting right next to you now, interceding for us. You've given us the gift of the Holy Spirit that is inside of us to guide us and to direct us and to give us peace. So that would be my prayer for all of us during this week. We also would continue to ask that you would bring your umbrella and just put it over this island, and that you would protect us and all the people that live here. We're seeing that it's becoming a difficult time in the area in which we live, with the cases just going up and up and up in the little town that's only 4 or 5 miles from us. So continue to guide and direct and protect. We ask all of that in Jesus' precious name. Amen. One little PS is I finally got in all my communion supplies. I shouldn't say all of them. We ordered a great, great big box of about 500 from the church. I got in a supply of about 200. So what we'll be doing is probably sometime next week, a couple days in there, we will put those in little bags and let you just drive up and grab a bag so that for the next 2 months you'll have an official communion and you won't have to do virtual communion. You will all be taking of the same elements. Most of these companies that make these have been asked to do other things to keep America going. And it's amazing the adjustments that a number of companies have made. Instead of making cars, they're making ventilators. And instead of making communion things, they're making other products that are so very, very badly needed. And it just kind of shows you how Americans are pretty good at going with the flow. And we just really give thanks for all these wonderful companies that have done things behind the scenes that we'll probably not know about that have made our lives so much better. And as we think about Flag Day, we think about all of those people that did things behind the scenes that have made our freedom the freedom that we enjoy today. So let me just invite you sometime during the day, just take a little walk outside, even if it's not very far, and look up into the heavens and give thanks to our Father for all the many, many blessings. Give thanks for those who have served our nation and given us this freedom that we enjoy. Because I can tell you, there's never been a country or a people that have lived as well as we have and have been as blessed as we have been blessed. So God's blessings upon you in this week which lies ahead.